then how does it manage to create a world as we know it, as we, human being or mental being, experience it? And now he is trying to explain how that could have created the world. The problem, therefore, is one being there is, and one only. And that being becomes. That is to say, flows into movement, flows into activity. Eternal, the flow of the eternal, the world. The flow of the eternal world. Now, this, how does it happen to come into existence? What is the process by which this change is brought about as we notice the world as we notice, and the flow from the eternal in the form of the world? Because a finite being as man is, he cannot have that perfect absoluteness in his consciousness to understand how that transformation could have taken place, because the very infinite or eternal has assumed this finiteness, and remaining on the finite, he cannot get into the absolute and know the process as to how it could have managed to become the world, or because he is refusing to give up the ground of the finite. And unless the ground of the finite is given up, how can he know the process of an eternal and an infinite? See, the difficulty why man or mind finds it difficult to follow the process of creation is that he firmly plants himself on the finite constitution of mind. He remains firmly fixed on mind, finiteness. And says, now remaining here, I want to understand what must happen to that which is infinite, and how that eternal and infinite has managed to flow into this world which I know is imperfect. And the difficulty arises because he fixes himself on the position of the finite in which he is limited. And he cannot, so long as he remains here, he cannot attain to that completeness or perfection. And if he doesn't, in some way, leave his position and project himself into that, he cannot know it. Yes, that is one. And the explanation lies in the threefold movement of the absolute, if you like, or the one and the eternal. Threefold movement. It has taken threefold movement. One is a movement of involution. Involution means it is, now he is explaining to the mind. He is not explaining speaking from the point of view of the one. He is telling this mind that is standing in the position of the finite that look, that which you see or know as the one and the infinite and eternal, it has involved itself in something opposite of its own constitution. That is one. The second process is emergence. From that it is rising. What is rising? That, the one eternal infinite being. An emergence into matter and life and mind. And in this emergence, there is a release of a being also. Release of a mental being, release of a physical being, of a thinking being. So the second process is emergence. First is involution, second is emergence of that Satchidananda, of that eternal, yes, into mind, life, body, and into a thinking and living being. Second. And third is this, in the second, it is this, that one is at play in this world, this cosmos which it is creating. And third is now the recovery of the Satchidananda here, the recovery of the eternal to take place here. If you see the three processes, then there is some chance of understanding how our world is as we feel it, as we know it. How does, granting that there was a triple process, but how did this triple take place there in the Supreme, in the infinite consciousness? How did it happen, or what was the process which took place by which that reality became phenomena? You see, there are two things known to human thought or mind. Phenomena, appearance, what we see, and that which is behind what we see is noumena, or you say reality. Reality and appearance of reality. How did this reality become the appearance that we have? Phenomenon. How did it become phenomena? it can't be that something outside made it act. That is true. So there must have been something that was determining from within the absolute and the eternal. The process must have taken within the eternal. A determination from inside, a self-determination must be at work. That is one. And self-determining power, a conscious law. In this self-determination, there must be also a kind of selective power. Because when one determines himself, there is a selection out of the whole material that is presented to him. It is explained in some of the religions and some of the philosophies that omnipotence began working. The eternal was omnipotent. But when he said omnipotent, what did he mean by omnipotence? He had to make a selection out of infinite potentialities within his own self. He said, let there be light, and there was light. All right. Now this is how it was created. You say, all right. What does it mean? When you examine the process, you mean that there was not light. Out of that, there was light also as a potentiality, and much that was not light. Well, the supreme omniscience and omnipotence selected, determined, self-determined, and brought out light as a potentiality into actuality and said light. So from not light, light had to be selected, is it not? A selective faculty was at work. A power of selection out of infinite potentialities and possibilities. Well, a determination with a selective power at work. It is that which must have brought the cosmos into existence. That is to say, not light had to be taken aside, light had to be brought into existence by selection, and it had to be protected from all that is not light in order to continue as light. Isn't it? Otherwise, it will again melt into not light. So, yes, it will go back to not light. So, a self-determination in which selective power and omnipotence, omniscience and omnipotence simultaneously working must have brought it into existence. And in the operation of this eternal, there is therefore a power of selective self-determination. Well, it is selective self-determination of the eternal one that has brought this creation and the flow from within its own infinite, womb of possibilities of potentiality. And this selective power of the divine or the self-determination is called Maya. We explained yesterday this word, is it not? This power of the eternal and infinite to create from within its own self, infinite self-determination, well, that selective power is called Maya, power of measuring, power of self-measuring, power of self-vision, to see, I can be that, I can be that, I can be that. Well, this infinite power of self-determination is Maya, self-determination in the sense of measuring out from within itself that which it sees in self-knowledge. That faculty is called Maya. And when you practice the yoga, Sri Aurobindo says that you have to overpass this Maya and afterwards embrace it. There are two kinds of Maya. This is the one Maya by which the divine fact, the eternal and the infinite determines his own, self-manifestation by a selective power of Maya. The second power is a lower play of the same nature. The same nature, self-determination is working here in the lower, in the human, in the life, in matter. And there is a mental Maya at work, a mental power of self-determination at work. If you see from above, it is a process of descent. If you see from below, it's a process of ascent. From above, one and eternal and infinite, then it determines itself. When it determines, we say, oh, it is descending. It is flowing as a world. But when we come below, and that is hidden from us, the higher determinative Maya, then we say, oh, it's an ascent. We are going up. You see, it is a double evolution as involution, as he calls it. Involution of the spirit and involution of matter. In matter, in matter, spirit is involved. In spirit, matter is involved. You see, so when we look at from the point of the spirit, it seems as if it is a descent. When we look at the point of view of matter, it seems it's an ascent. It's a process of double involution at work in which, yes, double maya or double play of self-determination seems to be at work. In the lower maya, we feel ascending point of view, we feel the process is of ascent. From above, it's in the process of descent. He is coming down. From below, we see, no, it's going up. Well, both are true in one sense. Mind cannot explain the cosmos because mind is an intermediate term. You say God's mind created the world, then it must be different mind, not mind constituted on the same basis as human mind. Because human mind is an intermediate instrument. It's a passage only. It cannot be creative of this vast process, even if you admit that it is a very vast mind. Somebody will say, no, we don't say vast, infinite mind. Then Chandu says, infinite mind, if you say, then it won't be mind at all. If you say it is infinite mind, then it will cease to be mind. It will become something else than mind. But given the characteristic of mind as known to man, even a cosmic mind will not be able to create the world. It must be something more than mentality in its constitution. Creation is nothing but self-manifestation. There is a one and infinite and eternal. And when you say creation, means manifestation of the self that is there in the one, eternal and infinite. Take a parallel to understand this little more clearly. When a poet creates, what does he create? It is himself, is it not? The poem is a manifestation of that which was in him unmanifest. A potentiality which was unmanifest is made manifest and actualized as a poem, but poem is the poet himself. He can, after it is created, he can separate himself and look at it as if it was somebody else's poem. But that is subsequent. It is really a part of himself that is projected. It is not something else from outside that he got. It was from inside, is it not? The creation of an artist is the projection or manifestation of a potentiality which was unmanifest in him, and he makes it manifest. But it is from within himself by a process of self-determination or self-development that he brings it out. It is self-manifestation. It is not somebody else's manifestation that is taking place. What was present as potentiality in the unmanifest is made actually in the process of manifestation. So all creation is nothing but self-manifestation. Existence acts and creates by its own power from pure delight of its own conscious being. It is the self-existent delight which determines the manifestation. Poet and artist and the musician create from where? Where do they create from? It is from within. That is to say, they develop a potentiality in the unmanifest self and cast those potentialities into form of manifestation. The form is created. Potentiality was there. He goes a little further and says that the thinker, the statesman, and the mechanician also bring out, when they express something into their life, they bring out something that was already there as a manifest, as a potentiality, as a possibility, hidden in them, but was and is only themselves. It was nothing else, and it is nothing else. Such is the relation between the eternal and the world. You see, and in the Veda, there is a one very fine hymn which says, look at this poem of mine. It is the creator who is supposed to say, Pashyame kavyam. Look at this poetry of mine or poem of mine. Namamara najiryate. It does not become old, does not age, it does not die. You see, the Supreme is here speaking of himself in the terms of the Rishi as a poet. And he says, this is my poem, The Cosmos. It does not grow old, doesn't age, and does not die. You see, yes, that's it. Well, it explains the nature of that from which it has emanated or manifested. It is like the eternal and the world has the same relation. You look at the seed, he says here in this chapter. If you look at the seed, out of the seed evolves that which was already there in the seed. And it is infinite potentiality that is in the seed. Because each seed hides within itself not potentiality of one tree, unlimited, infinite potentiality of any number of trees. Again, it goes back into potentiality as a seed after the tree. See? After manifestation, again the potentiality, well, becomes involved. Again it evolves, again involves, again evolves. Yes, an infinite process of self-expression at work. Yes, it was pre-existent in being what the seed brings out. And the plasm, the protoplasm, from which being evolved, well, the whole of the organism is present in the, in the protoplasm, in the plasm as a seed. It is there. It is pre-existent. Well, but one can say that individual being makes a distinction between himself and the force that works in him. I and the power that works in me. I and my mind. I and my life. I and my body. You see, man makes a distinction or a separation between himself and the force or power or energy that is working in him. Now, if you take that and if you just ask him to analyze, he will have to admit that the force is himself, even though he separates my mind. But what? It is not something else. It is himself. But he can separate. This is the quality of mind. Is this cutting things into sharp, objectivity and separating things into as if they were entire entities and dealing with each as if it was a whole, each as a whole, and each as separate again. So even the power that is working within oneself, one can separate. But really speaking, power is in his own self. When he says my mind, well, it's not something else, it is his own self. You see, my impulse, but my impulse is not outside, it is one's own self. So that even when mind separates, really it is working on a basis of unity. And we said before that the world play is realized by the supreme, eternal, infinite existence, consciousness, and bliss by a triple process of involution, emergence, and now the process of release is at work. What has to be done is the release of the Satchidananda in the world play. Now you can ask that it is all right, it is infinite, but why does it not create directly? You can say that infinite can begin to work in any way it likes. Why should there be an intervention of a process or a selection or a faculty which to us appears like a process, like a law? Why should there be in the operation of an infinite, eternal self-existence a necessity of a process? Why? Why should it be compelled to go? It can work pell-mell. As it comes, it goes on and manifesting. A world of chance, world of chaos, world in which, things are en masse, you can say. Why does it not work like that, directly and straight? Why should this self-determination appear to us like a law? Then he puts this question, what is a law? When you say a law or a process, what do you mean? Well, by law, you mean an equilibrium of forces. Powers and energies are working and they arrive at an equilibrium. And you find fixed lines of working, along which fixed lines it will go. If you heat an object, it feels hot. You see, if you do certain things will happen. So that The equilibrium of forces works along fixed lines of energy. Habit of past realized energies also is working. Past realized energy working along habits. And if you say law is indubitable, unchangeable, immutable, that means to say that the force that is working is not conscious, isn't it? It's only when the force is inconscient that you can say that the law is fixed. Here the law, the process, if there is any at all, from the infinite consciousness, existence, being, and eternal, then it is a conscious being. That is what we have discussed in chapter 7 or 8. Is it not? A conscious force and energy seems to be at work in the universe. Then there cannot be an indubitable, immutable, fixed law like an operation of an inconscient force. An inconscient force, when it operates along fixed lines, then you can predict the result because the force is unconscious, inconscient. Well, then it is a all law, in fact, is only a long established habit. There is no fixed law. Law is that at present things happen like this. That's all. If things change on one side, the law also will have to change. There is no fixed law like that, you see. Law is an equation indicating an equilibrium of play of forces, play of power, play of energies. And if you want, I'll make a little point clear going to the board. If you just see. Take man. Man equal to mind plus life plus body. Just this is what it is. This is the equation at present, isn't it? Now, this which says it is fixed. Now, supposing something here changes, then man will not be a limited entity but will become, well, man equal to X. Now, this X will become X dash. When something in the mind is changed, something in the life is changed, then man will not remain what he is now. This is at present the equation. Man, a quantity called X, is equal to mind, life, and body. Now, if he can introduce a change in his mind, or introduce a change in his life, or introduce a change in his body, which is quite possible because they are not fixed in the sense of, rigidity of material inconscience. They are not limited to mechanical nature. They are plastic and conscious instruments. Well, if that undergoes a change, well, there will be a change and man will become abstract, quite different quantity. So then man will be not a finite being, then you see, man is finite at present. But if this changes, then man might become infinite. It is quite possible for him to change into an infinite being afterwards, you see. It is not fixed. When you deal with a conscious being, then the operation of energies that are at work may have a habit and a long established usage, but it is not a law. Law in the sense that, well, it is something that is, inviolate. No, it is not inviolate. You can always change. Well, if that was not so, the world would be only an expression or manifestation of something inconscient. Now, but we have begun with the assumption and understanding that conscious power of existence is at work. And self-existence then we'll have to then explain this process of selection by consciousness. We'll have to explain it by consciousness, not explain it by an equation which is fixed. A law is there, but a law which is not immutable and mechanical and inconscient. Yes, a process. It must be directed by power of self-consciousness, this process. So, a self-determining power, a self-awareness of the infinite existence to perceive a truth within its own self. First, it must have a perception of a truth within its own self. And like a poet sitting and, trying to feel the coming inspiration of a poem, then he withdraws within himself and sees the poem as something from within his own self. Well, the eternal also looks or sees, the infinite creates, A self-determining power of self-awareness by perception of a truth in his own self, a truth of his own self within his own self. And that has flowed into this manifested creation. What he saw within himself as the truth, well, has now activated itself or materialized itself into what we see. That is what the Upanishad meant when it said, Saparyagat, each Upanishad says, he it is that went abroad within his own self. Not went abroad in the sense that there was something outside where he had to go. In his own infinite consciousness, he saw a vision of his own self, a truth of his own self. And because it was a truth of the eternal, infinite, and conscious power, it was charged with the force of self realization. When a man sits and has a vision of something that he would like to do, you will see that his mental vision is limited in its power of actualizing itself because mind is not omnipotent. He can realize something of what he sees as an ideal or something great he wants to do, some perception of perfection or something that he wants to become. Yes, but mental perception of self of man is not accompanied by adequate power of self-realization. But here, what we are talking of as a conscious power of an infinite existence, there, the self-vision of the infinite as a truth within his own self is not an idle dream. It is not a abstraction of the mind. It's a self-perception of an infinite conscious power. And therefore, it has the power of realizing itself. It is automatically charged with the power of self-manifestation or materialization. It is not the idle thinking of a mind which is a vision of its own self within the mind. No. It is the vision of an infinite conscious being, of a truth of his own self. And because it's the truth of an infinite conscious being, it is charged with the power of materializing, power of throwing itself out into a manifestation which to the mind appears like a world. Why should there be a special power? Why does the infinite, could not directly result himself into this world, and why this process of, a vision of a truth within his own self and then throwing it out into manifestation? Why not any direct action? Because all action from the point of view of the infinite will be the action of the selective power. It cannot be a pell-mell indiscriminate action. Because we have supposed and known that it is an infinite existence, but also a conscious power. And in the consciousness, there is the one faculty or one force of consciousness is knowledge. Second aspect of it is power. That is consciousness. Consciousness is knowledge and power. When you say an infinite conscious being, then it is also self-aware, self-conscious. It has a self-knowledge and also self-power, power to realize that which the self knows as itself. So, as it is charged with this double aspect of consciousness, knowledge, and power, then the selective faculty brings out directly something out of its own self, a selective faculty out of the supreme consciousness and being in which all is all, without barrier. Of separative consciousness is not present, but emerges as a phenomenal being in which all is in each and each is in all for a play of infinite existence with existence, consciousness with consciousness, delight with delight. So when the self-vision in the Supreme has gone forth and Saparyagat, when he has seen the vision of his own self as a truth within his own self, it goes out as a play of all with all, each with all. And in that play, existence within his own self is playing with existence. Consciousness is playing with consciousness. Delight is playing with delight. It is not as it were a separation had taken place and the world had come into being. No. A capacity of many based on the one, or multiplicity basing itself on unity, has come into being in the selective power, in the self-determinative power. And there the world that first exists is the truth world. Saparyagat, and then Kavi, Manishi, Paribhu, Swayambhu. These are the words of the Upanishad, and he takes full support from the Vedic, precedent, that Upanishad saying he is like a poet, like the thinker, one that goes around and pervades, self-creator. Swayambhu is self-existent. Yes, he has from times immemorial or sempiternal fixed that which will manifest out of itself by the selective power. From time sempiternal, it has been fixed. So what comes into existence is something pre-existent. What the mind knows or what the seed brings out is that which was already pre-existent somewhere in the vision of the infinite. It was there already before it came out here in a manifested form of in terms of matter. This double play of Maya, well, is necessary to take cognizance of if you want to understand the world from the point of view of an omnipresent reality. If the world is expression of an omnipresent reality, then double aspect of this creative power is to be accepted. That first, the infinite has a vision within his own self of a self-determinative power in which he sees a self-vision of truth within his own self and projects it first within his own self, where there is no division, where the multiplicity exists based on the unity, where the basis of unity is not yet lost. A truth creation is the first projection out of the infinite and the eternal. And then a descent, when it takes place, then the what we call the second Maya, the avidyamaya Maya, the secondary process of self-formation is seen in the mental consciousness. When mind comes into play, you get the double Maya. This is the truth. Well, it is concealed here in the lower Maya. In the lower Maya, that truth of self-determination of the infinite Satchidananda is hidden, is concealed from the lower Maya. And because of the mental play, mind plays. And when mind plays, it takes each and persuades itself to accept that each is separate. And then the I accepts that I can be all, but all cannot be myself. I can become ears, that's it. It is this which intervenes the veil. It is this which creates the veil. A separate being he feels himself to be and does not feel himself inseparably one with all existence. Then this Maya would not work. But as he feels that he is separate and isolated and not inseparably one with all, well, that interposes a veil by which that determination of the absolute and self-existent knowledge is hidden, that he has seen a truth of himself within, and by a selective self-determinative power, he has already created a truth world there in which the multiplicity and many already exist based on the one. There the unity is not lost and yet the multiplicity exists without division and separation. You see, division and separation becomes active here also in the lower Prakriti, where the cognizing consciousness separates itself so completely as to hide the great fact that it is inseparably one with all. Well, that unity being lost, well, the vision of that which is creator also becomes as if a world of strife, conflict, ignorance, suffering, evil, all feeling is there afterwards, because that is lost. Well, the vision. Now, this is it. The higher play in which each and all coexist in the unity, that is the truth. The truth of the one is that the truth of one always holds the potentiality of the multiplicity within itself. Now, why we accept this world? Why in Sri Aurobindo's vision there is an, a, the principle of acceptance of world because of this vision that it is the self-determination of a supreme knowledge, power, and wisdom in infinite existence that is at work, not a play of something opposed to the omnipresent reality which has brought the world into existence. And if the world is the existence or manifestation of omnipresent reality, then we have to accept first the lower play, overcome the lower play, enter the higher play, and go beyond the higher play and bring down the will of the Satchidananda here. Emergence of Satchidananda is the problem, is the solution. If here the Satchidananda emerges, then there will be no ignorance. If here the self-determinative power realizes its own oneness and self-existence, then there will be no disharmony. So to bring about the emergence, double movement is necessary. Acceptance of the lower Maya first, because it is the divine's Maya. Even this lower play is the divine's play now. Now you understand, it's not any outer power that overcame the divine omniscience, omnipotence, and omnipresence and created this world. One omnipresent reality, by a power of self-vision of its truth of its own self, created a truth world in which one and the many coexist at the same time without losing the unity. Yes, and now in the mind, the being separates itself and does not see that. The problem is therefore to accept it, because this also is a play of the divine. This descent is also involution of the divine. It is gradually moving towards matter. So it is a step of the supreme. Therefore, the world is accepted as a term of the infinite and the eternal, and therefore real. And if this play is real, then first accept the lower play of the Maya, division, ego, desire, conflict, selfishness, world as we see it, full of imperfection, difficulties, and all kinds of problems. Yes. Go beyond this, then go beyond that Maya also, and bring from the Supreme His will into this play of avidya. Then the emergence of Satchidananda here becomes a fact. When it becomes a fact, well, then the problem is solved. That is the way to look at it, you see. In the higher play, each and all coexist in the unity of that one supreme truth, the infinite and eternal one. The remedy, therefore, is to embrace this mental or lower Maya, overcome, because it is God's play with division, God's play with darkness, God's play with limitation, desire, strife, and suffering, in which He is subjecting Himself to the force that has come out of His own self. More positive than that, there cannot be a clearer statement of the reality of the world and its divinity. I am quoting almost his words here. I purposely took that out, you see. That you can see why he considers this world, because here, again, because this requires to be hammered into human mind, you see. Yes, that it is God's play with division. God's play with the darkness, limitation, desire, strife, suffering, in which He subjects. So don't put anybody else responsible for this. In which He subjects Himself to the force that has come out of His own self. That's why you accept. You see, it's very clear philosophically. I mean, it's quite clear to understand if you accept the one assumption that spirit is a basis and not matter. He has not asked any other assumption for his philosophy. He only says, do you believe matter to be the basis, consciousness or unconsciousness? Well, if consciousness is that, this is the only conclusion you can come to. It's not necessary to reduce the world to illusion or non-existence if you grant to the basis of one spirit at the basis. That's all. The other Maya too has to be overpassed. Because if you go into that and say that the projection of it into play of delight also is its own determination. And therefore you have to enter into the play, go beyond it, and again come back into the flow of creation. You have to accept the flow from above and not from below. That's the point. accept the flow of creation from above and not from below. Yeah, then it is also God's play. That also is God's play. Play of the infinities of his existence, play of the splendors of his knowledge, where he emerges out of the hold of his own force and holds his own energies in and fulfills in her what she wanted when she separated from him. So that you have to allow that power to be overpassed and bring the determination here in ignorance to make possible emergence of Satchidananda in the lower truth. We have tried to show that this is not a mental power by which creation is brought into being, because mind is an intermediate state, and it is only meant for souls that are imprisoned in the works of nature that mind is useful and necessary and indispensable. And in this very mental consciousness, we can feel that as a solution, the Satchidananda has to emerge. And mind is only one of the instruments of Satchidananda in the descent of the truth from above, and it is one of its instrument or a passage or a step in his ascent from below. From below the ascent, mind is used as a step. From above, it is used as an intermediary for descent. You see, as a step of coming down. Well, creative power therefore cannot be mind but a real idea. Real idea in the sense of a self-vision of the supreme consciousness throwing itself out into mutable forms of its own, well, you can say, imperishable, immutable substance. And this comes to the mind also, that there is a truth, there is a reality. And when mind in its limitation wants to expand, to progress, what it does is to feel the call of truth, feel the seeking for a reality or an ideal. Imperfection being given, perfection is seen, perfection is vision, and an attraction of perfection always operates. It becomes an aspiration. It is that which is calling, really speaking, the real idea, the reality that is at work. To the mind, it becomes truth. I want to know what is right. Yes, it becomes an ideal, imperfection actual, perfection possible in the ideal. And there is a move from the actual imperfection to the realization of an ideal which is perfection. If ideal is reached or an attempt in reaching the ideal, one is always transcending, reaching the transcendent. So that the tension, the pull is already there of the real idea that is creative of the cosmos. The pull is already there even when the veil is intervened. Behind the veil and below, so to say, the tension of that one is working all the same, creating here, seeking for truth, seeking for an ideal, trying to make life attain some kind of perfection from imperfection. The real is behind all that is, and it is seen in the mental consciousness as an aspiration, an ideal for perfection, a concealed harmony being sought, and a transcendence being attempted. Well, infinite consciousness must therefore become an infinite faculty of knowledge to create this world. Therefore, it is omniscience and omnipotence that is at work in the cosmos. An infinite power of knowledge and infinite power of action is omniscience and omnipotence. It is not mental omnipotence, because mind is not omnipotent. Mind is weak in that sense. Then the world can be created by an infinite consciousness becoming or acquiring or acting upon an infinite faculty of self-knowledge. Mind is not that, because mind is not knowledge. Mind is not even an instrument of omniscience. Mind is something that is seeking knowledge. Well, mind finds the truth sometimes, but does not possess it. Mind is not an instrument that knows, but mind is an instrument that tries to know. Well, here what we are dealing with is a power that possesses the self-knowledge, you see, has the self-knowledge, and therefore can, let itself out into a materializing because the self-vision was of the truth of self. Mind is only a reflective mirror which receives impressions or presentations of something that already exists. Mind is not creating anything. Even when mind succeeds in knowing something, it is acting as a receptive mirror. And what it knows is something that was there. It is brought into its ken, that's all. When you find out a law of gravitation or find out atom fissioning, but it was there already when mind did not know it. It's not as if mind created something which did not exist. Mind is a reflective mirror which accepts or takes the presentations of pre-existent truth or images of pre-existent truth, if you like, you see, and effect, and it lives from moment to moment. It is not in possession of the whole truth. To it, the truth is gradually revealing itself from moment to moment, time to time. Today it knows so much, then afterwards so much, then afterwards so much. It is not as if the whole of the truth is possessed by the mind. That's not the law of the mind. It is in fact, mental consciousness is the law of immediate appearance of this universe and not of its original truth. The faculty which deals with the immediate appearance has nothing much to do with the original truth, essential truth, which is at work. And we feel all the time that what seems to be at work is something more than mind, something more than life, and more than matter. All the time it seems to be as if the whole thing was englobed by something more than mind and life and matter which we see or perceive with our senses and mind. This whole world, therefore, seems to express a truth which is already seen somewhere above in the higher Maya. In the higher creative faculty of the real idea, it already pre-exists. Forcing truth and obeys a predetermined will realizes an original formative self-vision of the Supreme. Universe is a growing image of a divine creation. There comes the difficulty. One speech by somebody from somewhere. Everything is already there. Nothing that you can experience is not existent. That's quite true. And yet, in our can of experience, many new things come into existence. Motor car did not exist some time back, and now it exists. Now, in one sense, potentiality of motor car was always there. Is it not? You understand? So I am trying to give answer to those people and those people who try in season and out of season that it is already there. Already there. One lecture I read some days back, from somebody. It is already there. Yes, it is already there in seed, in potentiality, in possibility. The whole problem of creation of the world is to actualize it, to realize it, to make it active, to embody it, to put it in terms of matter. That is the whole problem, is it not? Supreme Satchidananda is all the time, everywhere, all the time, for all eternity. Whole problem is to make it emerge. By saying it is all the time there, we solve nothing. Problem is how to, yes, make it flow in time movement, because it is not a fixed picture of the world. It's a growing image, remember. World is not a fixed image of God. This is a subtle distinction, but very important for yogic life. For those who want to be religious minded and believe in something, that is all right, very good. All the time God is there and we are there, and we try to worship Him or give Him, praise, or give Him some sort of, allegiance or some devotion and say this is very nice and so on. But if you meant to tackle the problem seriously and say that no, well, the divine must become dynamic in life. Then the problem is not that all the time divine is not there. That is the whole thing for man. Divine is all the time there, that we know. Nothing to be said about it, is it not? It is axiomatic almost that without the divine, the world wouldn't exist. Nothing would exist but for the divine. So that is all right. And it's all the time there. What is all the time there? Ignorance is all the time there, probably. Mind is all the time there playing. And behind it, you can say, oh, yes, divine is playing through the mind also. Are you conscious of the divine? Do you know the divine that is playing? Then it is all right. But merely a mental statement like a, like a platitude that all the time politicians are having the habit of giving platitude. World peace, everybody, we are at peace, we don't want to fight with anybody, this, that. They were all the time talking that. It's all talk. It's good. That's all. But it means nothing. Because they have their own purpose and aim. Well, just the same human being is doing with this great truth. Oh, everything is all the time there. So what? It is not a fixed image. World and man and individual and collectivity and cosmos and universe is a growing image of a divine reality. Well, in that case, if it is a growing image of a divine creation, then it will bring into manifestation on earth and on in the earth consciousness the elements that have not yet been there but are potential. Yes, potentiality of the divine is in each man. That is what is meant by saying that the Lord is hidden in the heart of every being and all beings. How to bring it out into manifestation is the problem. No use saying all is there all the time. Potentiality is all, oh, I've got all the seeds, but you can't eat the seed and have the taste of the fruit. You see, you can't do anything with the seed. You must bring it out into expression. You see, yes. Universe is a growing image of a divine creation. Is this only an inference or is this only an idea? Well, for that one has to accept the position that man's reasoning power or mental capacity is only a messenger, a representative of a greater consciousness. Being, we have begun with this assumption that infinite being is infinite consciousness. Infinite consciousness and power is omnipotent force. And when it makes a world its object of consciousness, then it becomes, well, you can say, seizable by our thought. When this infinite power of consciousness makes this world its object of consciousness, then our mind is able to see in our thought. And when we see, it appears to us as cosmos, as the universe, cosmic existence. And it knows its own truth, but it realizes in form that which it knows. All the form in which it realizes is a form of that which knows. Well, I think stop there if you want. We can go a little further, but then it is more again a taxing of your intellect. So better not to. There is a rule in the Upanishads that when you dedicate yourself to metaphysical subjects, you must not overtire yourself. And Upanishad reading in India, that is a rule that when you are reading Gita or Upanishad or Veda or something, then you say, oh, have you got perspiration here? Well, stop. They give an indication. You see, when you are perspired, stop. At one point, when you feel, oh, it's that shows that the strain has come to a limit. Mind that you are straining, you see. An instrument with brain and all that. Meditation is quite different because that doesn't involve that strain. You see. Meditation perhaps might give you a strength, perhaps a power and help you and rebuild you. But mental work can tire you. Meditation is not mental work, it's work of consciousness, where you can almost, replenish your energy. And that's why I was surprised when somebody said that, oh, she'll be tired. I said, not at all. If she meditates, she'll become strong. You have no idea. Meditation, there is no greater tonic than meditation. Really, I tell you, that is a fact. People, you must do it willingly, yes. No compulsion. And no, oh, I must do because it's routine. No, then nothing will do. But if you feel, I must meditate, there is no greater tonic than that. You can take my word for it. Because it is contact with some higher consciousness. You are always in contact, and the vibration of that always sets your whole organism into order. Always. There is no question about it. I mean, it's the ABC of spiritual life. Anybody who has lived a little yogic life knows it like that. It's well-known truth. That from the fact that this gentleman, how many things he has written, remaining in one house and one room. From where did he get this energy? I mean, this is physical output. Now, look, forget that he has a divine consciousness. Whatever consciousness he had, the output that he has put is sufficient to fill 1 or 2 cupboards. And he remained in one room for 40 years. Now, how did he manage to get the energy? Isn't it? This is a problem. So, he must have got it from somewhere. No, meditation means a opening to a spiritual power or a spiritual consciousness or a truth. Always, replenishes your energies of mind, life and body. Unless you have ambition in your sadhana, in your spiritual life, and you want to become great suddenly or become very powerful, then you may have reaction. But if you only do it for the sake of the divine and want the truth and want to open yourself to light and want your life to be guided by some higher consciousness or divine power, there is never any question of risking your health or anything. It's absolutely certain that there is no question of health at all, unless you have a, what you call hereditary something, which is a different on the body plane of body. Hereditary weakness or hereditary imperfection, that is a different matter. But otherwise, normally, 8 men or 9 men out of 10, I don't think meditation is the best tonic. If willingly done and done with sincerity, without ambition and ego motive, because in meditation and yoga also there are many people who go in with an egoistic motive. It's a very well-known thing for those who know what is yoga.
You don't know yet how to meditate. Is there still a good effect if one's aspiration is sincere?
Yes. We have dealt with it yesterday evening in one sense, that you feel life's imperfection or inadequacy of what life can give, career or desire or property or money or name or place in public and so on. These are the things that make a man progress from inertia to, to a better condition, to progress in his inner life, partly also with the outer life. But when all that has been seen, either before experience or after experience, you can see it before experiencing if you are, inclined to see the world and life. Then when life is seen as something in which you can't fulfill your inmost, yearning, then you take to inner life. And then you decide to make that as your main plank or main first priority of it. And then that impulse or that will or aspiration becomes a fixed part of your inner being, that all the time you are aspiring. Aspiring for the truth, aspiring for the light, aspiring for the guidance of the power that is at work. And in this yoga, the great advantage is that you can immediately put yourself in contact because, well, that power has been canalized into operation in Sherungo, mother, and the people who practice that yoga, so it has become active. And reliance on that power is one of the great things, because reliance on ourselves as aspirants, as people who can reject and people who can surrender. That's for the human area. The rest of it, the power has to do. And one has to open it. That's all. The process is opening. It is like keeping a door open. You see, if you are expecting somebody, what you do is you keep your door open and be in an expectant mood, almost of a receptive mood. That so and so is coming, is it not? Right? When you open the window or door and be on the watch and say, oh, you see, just like that, a receptive mood in which the consciousness is willing to have something which is not of this earth or not of intellect or mind, but something which is managing this world. You want to put yourself in contact with it. Well, it begins to work. In that receptive mood, it is able to come and influence. That influence, if you are well open and conscious, you will notice. Many things might happen which you may not notice because the power works out, things in you even when you are not conscious. You have a tendency and you think, oh, I will have to work 10 years before it goes. But when you open to this power, perhaps after 1 or 2 months, you find that it is not strong. Now it is gone. You wanted certain thing at certain stage of your life and very much wanted it. When you open to this power, if it is in keeping with your growth, well, it is all right. If it is not in keeping with your growth, it will get out of your consciousness. Somehow you will think, oh, it's not worth doing. You don't know how it has come. See, that is how it works out. It can show you, if you are conscious, why it is not worth your pursuing it. But even if you are not conscious, it can throw it out by creating a condition in you in which you yourself will say, well, I don't want. Sure. At one stage, a man says, I want money. Or at one stage, I want power. Or at one stage, a man says, I want this. But those things might be thrown out of his consciousness simply by working out of this consciousness. It can, put around protecting wall so that those things will not enter, first of all. And those that are entered will go out of the heat and light which it throws on the consciousness. It's very tangible, you see. If one knows it and is conscious, then you will see that the power is very concrete and the presence can be felt.
This is also a process, though, isn't it? I'm thinking in my own experience, I think that I did carry you. There was a time when the meditation came for me.
Yeah, yes.
Now, I don't have that now. I've lost that.
Yes.
And I don't know whether through the different imperfections that had to be worked out and have clouded over.
Yes. That is because of nature. You see, nature is to be tackled. This nature, which is divine's own acceptance of his own imperfection, you understand? Yes. That has to be worked out. That's why one is thrown into it. Again, to seek the divine help there and to throw it out again.
So that's, nothing to regret?
No, not at all. No, it is a condition for us necessary for growth. That is really growth.
It's very much like an athlete. An athlete can't overtrain and go actually cannot perform his athletic feat as well because he's overtrained. Sometimes he has to stop training for a while to get back to his right condition.
No, generally what happens is in the yoga that a vision of what is possible is given in advance to the sadhak when he is very sincere and earnest and intense in his aspiration. Vision of something very great and perfect, knowledge or possibility of perfection and so on. He knows it. Afterwards he cannot forget. The whole world may argue against it. He cannot accept the world's argument. He knows it is there. Then it is glided over. Because the road to it is worked out by eliminating from his own nature the forces and the powers of ignorance that are intervening between him and the realization of the vision. When he has worked it out, the vision will be all the time there afterwards. He will be living in that. He will be living in that truth. He will not be, afterwards he will not living in the cloud. No. But the cloudy condition is intervened to eliminate the imperfection of nature, because this is a yoga in which nature you have to accept. And the ignorance of nature has to be eliminated by the help of the divine and by a sincere aspiration. This is a very important item which does not obtain with that strength in any other yoga. That you can and you must bring the help of the divine in transforming or changing the ignorance of nature. And so all actions have to be, offered to the divine for its decision and change. And all tendencies have to ultimately undergo change. Then the vision becomes permanent and man rises into the emergence of the new truth becomes permanent. What is required is a permanent station in the higher consciousness. What is required now is not an occasional glimpse. What is required is a permanent station in the higher consciousness, either deep inside or high above. And you remain permanently in that consciousness, throwing out from physical nature, vital nature, mental nature, all those tendencies which even the remnants of which are still remaining. You work out consciously from there. Because then it ceases to be your nature. You see, it is not your nature afterwards. It is a universal nature given to you for working out. It is as it were a problem of all was given to you at a certain point to be solved by you. It's not my or your or anybody's defect or imperfection. It is universal imperfection. And you have to throw it out at your point of, manifestation or existence or life. Because there it is still there and you are eliminating it there. So that from other points of life also it may be eliminated.
One just has to accept this, one just has to accept this, that there's the process,
Yes.
and at the same time continue to.
You continue to eliminate it, yes.
Yes.
Not accept it as a divine dispensation, but accept it as an exercise and work. Accept as a problem given for solution. Because immediately fatalism otherwise comes and predetermination and people say God has intended all this and that and so on. Material for typing. Tomorrow is off day, so I can give it to somebody and take 2 or 3 copies if you can, and if it is possible.
I can run the typewriter if somebody has it.
Tomorrow is off day, that is why I make this possible announcement. Tomorrow we are not having any schedule, so I have a lecture on art. So you are interested in art, probably you will like it. You'll like it, perhaps.
We have the morning meditation,
Yes,
that's all.
yes.
Not afternoon meditation tomorrow.
Well, if there are people who want to meditate, I would like to. My meditation is all right, but if there are people who want and come, it's all right. We'll meet. I would like to have meditation. But even in meditation, if there is a desire to have a holiday, well, all right. I don't like a holiday in meditation.